Welcome back, guys, to our second talk on the geography of Asia. And we did our general talk on Asia. You had a quiz on that. You'll have that anyway on Friday. But now we're going to talk about our first region in Asia. And this region is known as the Middle East. So the first question we have to answer is, what does it mean? Why do we call this the Middle East? The odd thing is about this region is that its position is the word Middle East is based on its position in relationship to Europe. For centuries, Europe was the dominant culture and dominant area of the world, and therefore they kind of measured everything in relation to their continent. So when people in Europe talked about the Near East, that what meant it was the area nearest to Europe. And up at the top here, you can see those areas, Turkey and Egypt and Libya. This is Turkey up here, and Syria and so forth. Those were often considered part of what was called the Near East. And the Far East is on the bottom here. And the Far East is a region that would include places like Korea, Japan, and China. So basically, it's the chunk in the middle that is the Middle East, right around here. All right. So what that actually constitutes, that has changed over the years. Many people would not include the countries that we are including in the Middle East, and other people would add other countries as far west as Algeria to the Middle East. But for our purposes, we're now going to discuss what places are included in the Middle East. So please open up your atlases to pages 170 and 171. And when you look at that, you will see a map of the Middle East as we are going to conceive of it. You'll notice the countries that are colored are the ones that we're going to be including. All right, and the first thing you'll notice, though, if you're looking closely, is that the Middle East is actually on three different continents, because part of Turkey is in Europe, so the Middle East is in Europe. Okay, and Africa and Egypt and Libya and Sudan are in Africa, so Africa is also part of the Middle East. All right, so we have a region that includes three continents. Okay, and in our map, at least according to our map, the Middle East extends as far east as Iran, although many people would include Afghanistan in that as well. And it goes as far west as Turkey, but many people in Asia, anyway, would include places even in North Africa. Now, I also included Israel in there because it's a very unique country and one that is very much often or very often in the news, right? It's an important country in the Middle East. Many of you might not know this, but it became a country in the modern sense in 1948. Or after World War II, the United Nations recommended that there needed to be a Jewish homeland with all the horrors that happened in the Holocaust and so forth. So on May 14th, 1948, an independent state was declared in this section of the Middle East known as Israel, roughly where the ancient Israel was located as well. And ever since then, there's been ongoing conflict in this region between the Arabs and the Israelis. Okay, and right now there is a very uneasy peace that exists between them. There's always questions of disputed territories and so forth, and independent Arab states that should exist within that area. But that will be an ongoing thing, and you will often hear about it in the news as you're growing up. Now, what is the dominant language of the Middle East? And the dominant language of the Middle East is Arabic. There are other languages in the Middle East, okay? Um, uh, for example, in Iran, they speak a form of Persian language that they've spoken for centuries. But in the Middle East, the primary language is Arabic. Millions of people in the Middle East speak that language. The country with the largest population speaking Arabic is Egypt, which has 82 million speakers of Arabic. All right. Now, why is that? Why would a language that was once confined to the Arabian Peninsula spread all over the Middle East? And that's largely due to the Quran, the holy book of the Bible, of the Islamic religion, the holy book, their Bible, if you will. Um, And since they consider any translation from Arabic like a sort of heresy, like you shouldn't be saying, you shouldn't be reading the Quran out loud in any other language but Arabic, because that, according to their tradition, is how it was revealed to Muhammad in Arabic. So to put it in another language would be literally changing the words that God spoke according to their tradition, right? So in that way, you have to speak the daily prayers in the Arabic language. So naturally, many people in the Middle East, since that is where Islam was born, adopted Arabic as their language. And you see the Arabic writing up above, and it is so beautiful to look at. That is the Arabic writing right up here. And these people are doing one of the five daily prayers to Allah in Arabic. Now, what important religions were founded in the Middle East? All right. Three major world religions were founded in the Middle East. All right. The first one that we're going to talk about is Islam, because we just spoke about that in terms of the Arabic language. Within the Middle East, says there 336,700,000 people practice Islam in the Middle East. That is about 93% of the total population of the Middle East. Worldwide, there are 1.8 billion followers of Islam, and Islam was founded in the year 622. That's their year one. Like our year one would be when Jesus was born. Their year one is 622 AD, when Muhammad fled from Mecca to Medina. It's something called the Hijra, and that is the founding year of their religion. Okay, 622 AD. Everyone adopts the basically what we call the Gregorian calendar, the calendar that says we're 2020 years away from the birth of Christ. And then the next religion that was and Islam was founded in the Arabian Peninsula and Mecca and Medina by Muhammad. Christianity is about 5% of the Middle East population, somewhere about 20 to 25 million people, but that population is dwindling due to persecution. There used to be many more Christians in the Middle East, particularly in Lebanon. And worldwide, Christianity has about 2.4 billion followers, but only 20 to 25 million in the Middle East. Christianity was founded by Jesus around the year 30 AD. If you count when he established his public ministry and he declared the kingdom of God was present. And the last major religion to be founded in the Middle East was Judaism, the Jewish religion. There are within the Middle East over 5 million people who practice Judaism there, and most of them live in Israel, although there are these small little pockets, communities, sometimes under 10,000 or so people in various parts spread out across the Middle East. All right. Worldwide, there are about 14 million people who follow Judaism. And according to their tradition, Judaism was founded at the creation of the world, according to the Bible, right? So for them, and this is how they date their calendar, it is the year 5,780. So according to their tradition, most people don't hold this literally, but that it has been 5,780 years since God created the universe. So that is a little bit about the calendars of these three different religions. Now, what is the most important natural resource in the Middle East? And that is naturally, and maybe you guys were well aware of this, that is oil. All right. About 2/3 of the world's proven oil reserves, almost 65%, okay, so a little less than 2/3, are found in the Middle East. All right. And many of the countries in the Middle East, there's an organization called OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. That is countries that sell oil to other countries. And this was founded way back in 1960, and 5 countries founded it, and 4 of them are in the Middle East. That's Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. And since then, 3 other Middle Eastern countries are also part of OPEC. That's the short form of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. And that is Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Libya. All right. So a great deal of the economy in the Middle East is founded on oil and natural gas production. And there you see pictures of how much oil they produce or they supply to the world. And then you see a picture of an oil refinery down below that that is taken from Saudi Arabia. All right, so that is a major part of their economy. And then finally, what is the dominant climate in the Middle East? Well, that's arid. Meaning it's mostly a desert climate. So water too is a very important resource because it's so scarce. Oil is plentiful and water is scarce. So as I said in the next point, these countries are oil rich and water poor. And 85% of the water they do have, which isn't much, is used to sustain agriculture. So millions of people who live in the Middle East do not have access to the clean water that you and I have become so used to in our lives. We always have access to clean water. Um, One of the ways they thought of solving this problem, you might remember this from Jack Herster's presentation on Saudi Arabia, um, is the desalination of water. Literally, they take seawater and they take the salt and the minerals out of it to produce fresh water. It costs about $3, $4 per 1,000 gallons of water, and it sounds like maybe a good deal, but it actually it's definitely not probably the best way to go about getting the water. There are environmental issues and so forth, and it costs an extraordinary amount of energy to produce clean water from salt water. Um, and so it's a very expensive process, but they can afford it because there is so much oil wealth in the region. So that is our little presentation on the Middle East. I'm not sure where we'll go next. Maybe we'll go to the Indian subcontinent, or maybe we'll go to Siberia, or maybe we'll go to the stands, all those Kazakhstan and Mexico in the middle. We'll see when that comes. But I hope you enjoyed this presentation on the Middle East, and we will continue our journey through this massive continent.